Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the 21st Annual Minority Legislative Breakfast. I'm Anthony Featherstone, Executive Director of WorkSource Montgomery, and your host for today's event. Due to the ongoing global pandemic, we are connecting virtually again this year, with hopes that we will be together in the future for this very important annual Touchstone event. For 21 years now, the African American and Hispanic chambers of Montgomery County and the Asian American Political Alliance have united in their shared interest and goals for the county's diverse residents. The effects of the pandemic have been particularly harsh in our communities of color, which in many areas has suffered most from COVID-19. And during these difficult times, we've seen the achievement gap grow wider for minority students struggling with virtual and disrupted learning environments. And we watched unemployment push more families into food insecurity and the threat of eviction. And also these days, we're constantly reminded that the time for racial equity is now. This is why we come together annually to hear directly from our elected representatives at the federal, state, and county levels on how they are addressing these unique concerns, needs, and goals of our communities. Today, we'll also share with you our perspectives on the issues that affect us most and a planned approach to effective legislation on all levels of government. We'll hear from our leaders of our three host organizations as they amplify the voices of our respective minority communities. But before we begin, we want to thank our wonderful sponsors for providing the necessary support to bring you this important event.
We start with our platinum sponsor, Aventis Healthcare, and next to our gold sponsors, Pepco and Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation. We say thank you to our silver sponsors, Montgomery College, the universities at Shady Grove, WorkSource Montgomery, Holy Cross Health, Suburban Hospital Johns Hopkins Medicine, Adventure Theater, David and June Trone, and Tom Perez for Maryland. And thank you too to our community partners, the African American Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County, the Asian American Political Alliance, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, Montgomery County Branch, Rockville Economic Development Incorporated, and the Hispanic Business Foundation of Maryland. And last but not least, our media sponsor, Montgomery Community Media, for their assistance in creating today's virtual event.
And now I am honored to introduce Dr. Michael Lin, President of the Asian American Political Alliance, one of our three host organizations today.
My name is Michael Lin. On behalf of the three hosting organizations, I wish to extend a warm welcome to all of you to the annual Minority Legislative Breakfast. First, let me thank our sponsors and the members of the communities. We thank Senator Cardin, Senator Van Hollen, Congressman Raskin, Congressman Sarbanes, and Congressman Trone. And there will be other speakers come on later of the program. 21 years ago, three organizations, the African American Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and the Asian American Political Alliance, came together with a goal of making sure that we, the three minority communities, are engaged, actively participating, and contributing to make this county a great place for all of us. At the same time, we recognize there are unique challenges, such as racial prejudice, language barriers, and cultural differences. We are here today to have this conversation to ask for your support. Over the years, the population of these three minority communities have grown. In fact, collectively, we represented more than 50% of the county populations. Montgomery County is blessed with lots of talented people. Our African-American friends are always actively engaged. Our Latino brothers and sisters are fully aware of the political participation. However, Asian American community is often left behind due to their general dislike of politics, especially partisan in nature. But now we begin to realize we need to be more actively involved and contributing. During the last few years, when we look around, very quickly we realize the challenges are unbelievable. A nation of the envy of the whole world is so polarized beyond recognition. Suddenly we are reminded that the divided nation has been there all along and just been hidden or unspoken. We all know that the road leading to the future will not be easy. Someday, we will be judged by the history that we speak up and fight for the American value and for the future generations. Yes, we will be prepared. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Janice Freeman, President of the African American Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County, this year's lead organization for the Minority Legislative Breakfast. On behalf of the three organizations behind this event, Janice will present the legislative agenda. Janice?
Good morning, politicians, sponsors, and guests. Thank you for joining us for our 21st Annual Minority Legislative Breakfast. I'm Janice Freeman, President of the African American Chamber of Commerce. We are proud to be the lead host for this year's event. It is my honor to speak on behalf of the three host organizations. Together, we are presenting the legislative priorities for Montgomery County's African Americans, Asian Americans, and Hispanic American communities. Our theme this year is Moving Beyond COVID-19 Pandemic. It was December 2019 when we were initially introduced to the COVID-19 pandemic. Approximately 1 year later, in 2020, vaccines were developed. Most have received one or two of the required vaccinations, and some even received their booster shots. We have been maneuvering through these new norms of social distancing and mask mandates. Who would have ever thought we would be wearing masks? Through this COVID-19 pandemic, it has heightened long-standing racial, social, and wealth inequities, education and health disparities, rising unemployment and underemployment, food insecurities, unaffordable housing, and lack of available funding for minority small businesses. We're asking our lawmakers to address long-standing disparities in economic development, education, housing, health, as well as acknowledging our concerns. First, let's talk about the economy. Small business sustainability and access to good jobs are like key elements for our communities. We need cohesive federal, state, and local programs for small business growth. We also need business development incubators to help entrepreneurs and startups by providing a range of services, including management training, office space, and access to venture capital financing. Let's look at housing. From the economic fallout Fused with ongoing unaffordable housing, many minorities are spending 40% or more of their income on rent or mortgage, which is placing them in a greater risk of losing their homes because they are struggling to make housing payments. For the past 18 months, the county's moratorium and rental assistance program have saved many. Still, many are on the verge of foreclosures and evictions. We must provide emergency housing when needed. Extend the eviction ban to prevent more families from experiencing homelessness. When it comes to education, the impact of the pandemic on students of color is undeniable and widely documented. We must close the cultural and racial economic gaps in education and workforce development. This starts with providing quality teachers in all public schools and incentivize excellent teachers to work in underserved neighborhoods. We ask the legislatures to consider the Black and Brown Coalition's recommendations. We must facilitate access to non-traditional career development programs. That includes apprenticeships and vocational career training certifications. Finally, we must address community safety and racial justice. We all want to live, work, and shop in safe places. People shouldn't fear the police because of racial, social, or cultural profiling or face mistreatment or loss of life while being pursued or in the custody of police. We recommend implementation of more de-escalation training to help diffuse situations. As we emerge from the pandemic, we will use our collective voices to fight for what's right during this unprecedented time. Education, economic development, support for families and children in need, and policing are common ground issues that Montgomery County's minority residents want to see prioritized. By working together, we are setting a firm path for better days ahead. Thank you for joining us again this year and supporting the Minority Legislative Breakfast. We look forward to you joining and supporting us again next year. Continue remaining healthy and safe, and don't forget to get your COVID-19 vaccination. In closing, I would like to give a special thanks to Michael Lynn, President of the Asian American Political Alliance, and Carmen Larson, President of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County, for their support. Also, a special thanks to the Montgomery Community Media.
Thanks, Janice. Now it's time to hear from the people who represent us on Capitol Hill. We'll begin with our United States Senators, Ben Cardin and Chris Van Hollen, and in a moment, you'll hear from our Congressmen, John Sarbanes, David Trone, and Jamie Raskin. Good morning, gentlemen.
Hello, I'm Senator Ben Cardin, and I'm honored to join you for the 21st Annual Minority Legislative Breakfast. Many thanks to the Asian American Political Alliance, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and the African American Chamber of Commerce for convening this breakfast annually for the past 2 decades so we can discuss federal, state, and local legislation to solve the most pressing challenges in Montgomery County's minority communities. When I joined you all last year, our nation was enduring a devastating winter surge of COVID-19 virus. 1 year later, thanks to President Joe Biden's American Rescue Plan and the successful rollout of vaccines, our economy is beginning to recover, and we have reason to be optimistic. We can now begin to look ahead to life after COVID-19. And while our recovery will be difficult, it also will be an opportunity to build back our economy and our communities in a fairer and more equitable way. I was very proud last month when President Biden signed the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act into law. This once-in-a-generation investment will close the digital divide, replace old and dangerous lead pipes in our nation's water infrastructure, and reconnect minority communities that were intentionally disconnected by transportation infrastructure. The bill also includes my legislation to make permanent and expand the Minority Business Development Agency. Our state is fortunate to have 2 MBDA centers, including one here in Montgomery County, which will now have the capacity to serve even more communities and increase its grant making to support minority businesses. To take full advantage of this opportunity to reshape our economy, Congress must now pass President Biden's Build Back Better budget, which was drafted to build on the investments in the infrastructure bill. The budget will invest $5 billion to directly address the historic barriers that limit the growth and success of minority-owned small businesses by investing in the 7A Community Advantage Program, which has a much better record of getting capital to minority-owned businesses than the traditional 7A program. Creating uplift incubators based on legislation I introduced to create incubators and accelerators at our nation's HBCUs, community colleges, and minority-serving institutions. And creating a direct loan program at SBA to fill in the gaps in the private capital markets that leave minority entrepreneurs behind. This is how small businesses like yours will successfully make it to the other side of this pandemic. It's why getting this bill across the finish line is my top priority, and I'm looking forward to continuing to work with all the organizations represented at today's breakfast to make that happen. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Senator Chris Van Hollen, and I'm honored to be joining all of you for this year's Minority Legislative Breakfast. I'm proud to have participated in almost every one of these important gatherings over the last 21 years. And the theme of this year's breakfast, moving beyond the COVID-19 pandemic, comes at a pivotal moment as we work to pull our communities out of this public health crisis and begin our march toward brighter days ahead. Thanks to the American Rescue Plan, we've been able to deploy more life-saving vaccines more quickly and in a much more equitable way. That law also extended a helping hand to workers, families, and small businesses who are hardest hit economically. And it delivered federal investments to help keep our communities afloat, including here in Montgomery County. But as we work to defeat COVID-19 once and for all, it's not enough for us to simply return to the pre-pandemic status quo. We must do better. We must build back better. And that includes our efforts to ensure equity in education, housing, and small business growth. We've already enacted the first piece of the Build Back Better agenda with the passage of the new Infrastructure Modernization Bill, which will improve our transit systems, railways, water systems, roads, bridges, tunnels, and much more. Importantly, it also makes critical investments in building the backbone of a more competitive 21st century economy, including funds to end the digital divide and build out our clean energy grid and electric charging stations. That legislation also makes the Minority Business Development Agency a permanent feature of the federal government and doubles its authorized budget. But we must do more, which is why I'm working to pass the even bigger part of the President's Build Back Better agenda, which will empower more Americans to achieve their goals and help them make ends meet. It will deliver substantial tax cuts for families with children and provide for universal early childhood education and make childcare much more affordable. It will build out our nation's affordable housing infrastructure, make in-home care for seniors and disabled individuals more affordable, and lower the cost of prescription drugs. And it will deliver resources to fight the climate crisis. Getting this bill done will help us take a big step forward in our mission to promote inclusion and opportunity for all. And those efforts must go hand in hand with our ongoing fight to protect our democracy, defend every American's right to cast their vote, and pass the Freedom to Vote and the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act. I look forward to advancing those causes and others with all of you, and thank each of you for your continued partnership in that mission. Take care.
Greetings, everyone. This is Congressman John Sarbanes of Maryland's 3rd District. I want to thank you for the invitation to be with you at the 21st Annual Minority Legislative Briefing. I want to, of course, salute our sponsors, the African American Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County, the Hispanic American Chamber of Commerce, and the Asian American Political Alliance. In particular, I thank you for forcing lawmakers to keep focused at the federal, state, and local level on all the important ways we can lift up the diversity of our nation so that everyone can access the promise of America. This is the critical thing to make sure that our country is strong. And your focus on issues of healthcare, education, workforce development, job creation, lifting up small businesses. These are all the things we're fighting to do in Washington every single day. And we appreciate you joining with us in that effort. Right now, we're trying to further expand support for families across the country. Just do the things that make it easier for people to get through their day. High quality childcare, making sure there's preschool for 3- and 4-year-olds across the country, strengthening our community colleges, making sure that we have a good program to lift up small businesses that suffered tremendously in the pandemic. But we also need to stay focused on legislation at the national level that can support initiatives across the country to ensure access to environmental justice, to ensure access to racial justice at the hands of the police and law enforcement authorities. That's got to be a number one priority. And of course, underlying all of this is the need to make sure that our democracy is strong, that the voice of every individual can be heard and expressed in their democracy in a meaningful way. And that's why I continue to fight every single moment for the Freedom to Vote Act, which is the legislation in Washington, along with the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act, that can strengthen our democracy, lift up the voices of every individual, and make sure that the diversity of our country can really be our strength, and then can lend itself to a unity of purpose and commitment to principles that becomes the power of our nation. So thank you for staying so focused on these issues. I appreciate all of the good work that you do. Look forward, of course, to us being together in person, but very much appreciate the opportunity to be with you today.
Hi, I'm Congressman David Trone from Maryland's 6th District. I'd like to thank Dr. Michael Lynn, Carmen Larson, and Janice Freeman for the opportunity to speak today to all of you about the annual Minority Legislative Breakfast. I'm honored to represent Montgomery County in Congress, where we draw our strength from our diversity. This pandemic has been catastrophic to our academy, and it's no question that our communities of color have borne the brunt. Not too long ago, I visited Faye Cole, a Black businesswoman who owns Baltimore Street Collectibles. Faye and I talked about how the pandemic has exacerbated the racial inequities that communities of color face in our economy. The number of minority businesses owners decreased by more than 40% as the pandemic shut down the economy, compared with only 22% of total active businesses. This disparity, it's unacceptable. We're working hard in Congress to send much needed relief to minority-owned small businesses through efforts like the American Rescue Plan. But we also have to start stepping up for our communities of color for success as early as possible. We need to bring equity to our education system and close the skills gap. Last month, the bipartisan infrastructure deal was passed into law. This transformational legislation will bolster our public transportation system to connect communities and help local economies thrive, provide clean water and invest in climate change, protection for our underserved communities. And lastly, but equally important, this law will secure good paying jobs and career pathways for folks today and generations to come. We're all hard at work to bring equity and opportunity to all of our communities in every corner of the county. That's how we're going to help Marylanders and the entire county, entire country get back safely on track. So thank you. Take care. Most importantly, be safe.
Hello to all my friends at the Minority Legislative Breakfast. It's Congressman Jamie Raskin coming at you from Capitol Hill. What a pleasure, what an honor, what a delight to be with you, even though it's on Zoom this year. I want to salute all of the member groups that make this historic breakfast possible. The African American Chamber of Commerce of MoCo, Asian American Political Alliance, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County. Thanks to all of you for putting it together and for inviting me to just say a couple of words. I know the theme this year is moving beyond the COVID-19 pandemic, and thank you for infusing that note of optimism into today's discussion, because just when we think we might be getting out of it, then we're pulled right back into it. And so we do have the new threat of the Omicron variant, so we're going to stay vigilant about that, but we do have to plan for the future beyond COVID-19. That's why I'm proud to bring you the good news that we in Congress, in the House and in the Senate have gotten together to pass the $1 trillion plus infrastructure package, which is a major investment in the roads and the highways and the bridges and the ports and the airports and the decaying water systems and the lead pipes and so on. We are going to rebuild America from the ground up in every state, in every county, in every city in the country. We're going to be investing in refurbishing and reconstruction of the physical edifice of the country. But we're not going to stop there. In the House of Representatives, we passed the Build Back Better plan. We are waiting for the Senate to come and join us in passing the Build Back Better plan, which is a massive investment in the social infrastructure of the country. Universal pre-K for every 3-year-old, for every 4-year-old in the country. We've got paid medical leave, paid family leave for our people built into the Build Back Better plan. We've got expansion of healthcare through Medicare and Medicaid. We've got aid to the community colleges. We've got aid to the HBCUs. And we are working also, if we can get the Senate to come along, to expand Medicare coverage to include hearing and hearing aids for our people. So we've got a very ambitious agenda in there, plus massive investment, a record and historic investment in action on climate change to break away from the fossil fuels and to invest in the renewable energies we need through tax credits and through other programs in order to make us sustainable and competitive on the world stage. That's what it's all about. So, hey, I want to thank all my friends for doing what you do every day to make Montgomery County such a model, not just to the state, but to the whole country, of what we can do when we stand together as one people. So thank you for your hard work. Thank you for your passionate public commitment. I can't wait to see everybody again next year at the Minority Legislative Breakfast. And let's hope it's again in person and we can have one of those delicious breakfasts that the hotel is so famous for. I yield back to you and happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you, Congressman Raskin, Trone, and Sarbanes, and Senators Cardin and Van Hollen for making time to address these issues with us today. And now, it's my honor to introduce the 2 state legislators who lead the delegations for Montgomery County. Please welcome State Delegate Mark Corman and State Senator Ben Cramer.
Good morning, and thank you for extending to me the opportunity to speak at this morning's Minority Legislative Breakfast. I'm Ben Cramer, and I am one of the 8 members of the Montgomery County Senate delegation to the Maryland General Assembly. My Senate colleagues include Senators Craig Zucker, Brian Feldman, Susan Lee, Cheryl Kagan, Jeff Waldstreicher, Will Smith, and Nancy King. I can assure you that there is no harder working or more effective delegation in our state legislature. I would like to begin by saying thank you to the minority chambers for all that you do to support our Montgomery County business community. Our business owners and operators are of critical importance to the success of our county. You are the job creators and a significant source of tax revenue that funds all of the important needs that our residents demand of our government. Strong public schools, libraries, parks and recreation facilities, first responders, roadways, and bus systems are just a few of those assets that you help pay for. It is not lost on anyone, and certainly not our state legislators, that the past 2 years during the pandemic has posed a huge challenge to our business owners, and in particularly many of our minority business owners. In response to these challenges, the state has taken many actions, and there are far too many to list. But just a few of them include an infusion of millions of additional dollars into the small minority and women-owned business account to assist disadvantaged businesses. Millions of dollars of zero interest loans were made by the state and then were forgiven by converting them into grants. We created new programs within the Department of Commerce to help small businesses obtain financing. And for the first time in nearly a decade, we increased funding to the Small Business Development Center, which is a great resource to start and grow a business. These are just a few examples of the efforts that your Montgomery County state legislators have been working on to support our minority business community. We all stand ready and willing to work with you to address the needs and concerns that you have. And we also welcome your ideas with regard to opportunities that you feel will help make you successful. A strong and vibrant minority business community makes for good jobs and an effective government. Again, my thanks to all of you for making Montgomery County the place to work, live, raise a family, and yes, retire. Best wishes for the holiday season and good health. Thank you.
Hello, I'm State Delegate Mark Corman, Chair of the Montgomery County House Delegation. Our 24 members really reflect the diversity of Montgomery County. We have male and female members, Black and white, Asian American, Latino, Latina, gay, straight, everything from millennials to Gen Xers to boomers. We really reflect what Montgomery County looks like and what the people in this room reflect as well. I'm really excited to be chairing the delegation again this year as we begin to try to move past COVID-19. Obviously, there's a long way to go on that front and a lot of uncertainty, but certainly we're in a better place now than we were a year ago or 18 months ago. Your priorities are ones I think we all share as we look to this next phase, dealing with healthcare as we continue to try to encourage our friends and neighbors to get vaccinated, dealing with education as we deal with a year of learning loss, but also begin to implement the blueprint for Maryland's future, which will really be transformative for our communities. Of course, supporting those who need housing, including finishing the job of ensuring that renters have a right to counsel and all the support that we can provide them through various federal and state programs. And finally, ensuring that we're supporting our small businesses. Last year in our State Relief Act, we went a long way in ensuring our small businesses could continue to prosper and thrive, and we still need to continue that work. So we look forward to working with all of you during our upcoming 2022 legislative session to make all that happen. Once again, on behalf of the Montgomery County House Delegation, thank you so much for all your support and activism.
Thank you, Delegate Corman and Senator Cramer. We appreciate you joining us today. As we've discussed, we're all navigating unprecedented times, and it's difficult to stay informed on the issues that are confronting us on a daily basis. Recently, the group of leading authorities in Montgomery County sat down to talk about where things stand in the county on issues like the pandemic, education, and our local economy. Here's a look at their discussion.
I would like to thank the panel members for joining us today, and I'd like to introduce them. First, we have Brenda Wolf, President of the Montgomery Board of Education. We also have Frank Demarize, Director Deputy Director of Affordable Housing, and we have Anthony Featherstone, Executive Director, Workforce Montgomery. I hope I got everyone's name and title correct. Just if I didn't, please correct me. I would like to start with President Wolf to talk about some of her concerns during this troubled time of the pandemic with education. President Wolf?
Okay, thank you. You know, here at MCPS, we are intensely focused on our core mission of teaching and learning. This hasn't been easy because there have been a lot of competing demands managing COVID in our schools. We've had contact tracing, quarantining. We've had to interpret numerous health advisories from a variety of different sources. Mm-hmm. But the pandemic has impacted our students and families. As we elevate mitigating learning disruption and prioritize teaching and learning, it is clear that we must have a comprehensive approach to supporting our students so that they are available for instruction and can access opportunity. We've learned how central the school system is to meeting some of our students' most basic needs: food security, physical health needs, social emotional needs, technological needs. Being fed, being physically and psychologically safe, and having access to technology are all conditions that must be set if students are to learn. We know from our recent student data that in-person learning is the best instruction. Virtual learning as the primary mode of instruction has negatively impacted our students' academic performance. We looked at the data. It confirmed our belief that we have had significant learning loss during the pandemic. For example, the data reveals the largest decreases for our youngest learners, specifically students in grade 2 with regard to literacy. For our African American and Latino students, the loss was profound. Although we have not disaggregated Asian student performance data, we are aware that there are a wide variety of communities included in the category Asian, and we know we have to find ways to monitor and address the needs that might be hidden by looking at aggregate numbers. As a result of the pandemic, we're focused on 6 strategies that we're implementing to deal with learning disruption. We're looking at school improvement planning, literacy and mathematics as an instructional focus. We're looking at assessments for learning, acceleration of learning. We're looking at tutoring and intervention support, and we're looking at professional development for staff. A critical component of our work has been to mitigate learning loss, and we did this over the summer. We had more than 53,000 students participate in summer school, and we have data that shows that it did help. Our school improvement planning helps students and schools document and monitor the effectiveness that works to accelerate learning. We're focused on literacy and mathematics. We're using assessment to monitor and inform our work. We're looking at using grade level material. Research demonstrates denying students access to grade level material is counterproductive. So we start with the grade that they're supposed to be on and the level they're supposed to be at and work from there. We're matching our students' needs with intervention and tutoring support. This year, we have had to ramp up professional development for staff as they've learned how to navigate virtual learning and the return to school and to support the social emotional needs of our students. This has been our challenge, and we have to get back to our main focus of teaching and learning. Thank you.
Thank you, President Wolf. Deputy Director Demarize. why don't you tell us some of the concerns that your department faced during this troubled time?
Okay, thank you very much, Henry. And focus that I'd like to bring here is kind of across the county, the resources that we're committing, particularly those in the housing segment. So the Department of Housing and Community Affairs, together with the Department of Health and Human Services, focus, at least during the initial period here, we call this the response phase, on preventing eviction, preventing housing loss. So the county has mobilized all of its housing resources, outreach efforts. We've focused on rent assistance and on resources to target to the households so they can understand the resources and we can help them navigate the process to avoid eviction. The biggest thing going against the housing stability is the loss of employment. We've had so many lower income job sectors get devastated that we have delinquencies going through the lower income communities, and particularly properties with affordable assisted housing that are in the 20 or 25% level at some properties. Department of Health and Human Services had a very targeted program before the COVID, targeting the communities and specific buildings that had the highest rates of evictions and delinquencies. We leveraged that, which was geared to avoiding homelessness, to target rent assistance. Working with federal resources, the county is in process to provide rental assistance to pay back rent for over 10,000 residents. The combined funding from the 3 different federal initiatives that have been approved total over $110 million in rent assistance, back rent, and some forward rent for county residents, particularly targeting those in the most vulnerable properties and with conditions related to eviction and homelessness, such as unemployment rates and very low income. So the county is focused on keeping people housed through that. We know that this is going to be not sufficient to maintain housing when we get to the recovery phase. So the disaster response plans at the county operating against long-established outlines focuses on first respond to the emergency and then plan and execute support for recovery. So while we're still working in response, it's going to take another 4 months or better to get all of that $110 million out. It pays the landlord for the back rent, helps maintain and avoid evictions. But we know that what we had for a housing challenge and crisis before COVID is still with us and will be much worse as we come through and we work through these response dollars for the back rent. We had over 20,000 households who were spending more than half their income on rent before COVID. We know a lot of income loss has increased that number, and we're also seeing increases in rents. The county has implemented existing tenant protections that any tenant in a unit has had a limit on how much their rent could be increased, and this limit will continue through the middle of next year. Right now, that cap is no more than 1.4% rent increases, but we do know that there's upward pressure on rents as units become available, and there are increases in housing costs across the board and home sales. So we know that after we get through these federal dollars for rent, we're going to be working with tenants who've had damaged credit, who are still struggling with employment opportunities, and the county focus will be directing all of our resources to helping those households connect with new employment opportunities, to maintain their housing with the other programs that we have available, and to continue supporting households, food support, other social service support, and helping them to navigate that. Right now, the eviction process is still running at numbers about the level it was pre-COVID, actually below the pre-COVID levels of evictions. We have, on a monthly basis, we estimate 15,000 tenants who are currently delinquent, and we're catching up many of those, but we're going to have a significant number of ongoing court actions, eviction actions. The county has supported legal resources in the courthouse and in advance of court. We have outreach going on with community organizations. But the challenge we have as a community is that this damage to the economy, to these households, wiping out savings, taking vulnerable households and making them that much more insecure in their housing and other support. We know that we've got a very significant challenge reaching folks and then connecting them with resources. So,
you mentioned one thing, Frank, if I may interject, forgive me, about job loss, and that equates to some of the things that you're mentioning now. So I would like to ask Deputy Director Featherstone, basically some of his major actions that he has to take dealing with those issues. Executive Director Featherstone, why don't you interject your thoughts on these difficult times?
Yeah, thank you. And I'll start with a bit of data. So in October of 2021, Maryland Department of Labor reported that Montgomery County has over 25,000 unemployed residents. And furthermore, since the pandemic has started, our labor force has decreased by about 28,000 people. So that's 25,000 residents that are unemployed, another 28,000 residents that have dropped out of our labor force. Mm-hmm. And that's our major concern at WorkSource Montgomery. So that's what we're focusing on moving forward in the short and intermediate future. We're doing a lot of different things, but I'll try to truncate it as much as possible. Mainly, we're focusing on community impact. We want to re-engage a lot of those 28,000 workers that have dropped out of the workforce. Some, we call discouraged workers just because of the whole job search process and dealing, with the pandemic and so on, and try to re-engage them, get them on a career, pathway or trajectory to get them back into the labor force. So, we're doing a few things. One that I'm particularly excited about is a mobile job center that our county is getting ready to deploy. When you look at the data as far as our plurality maps, and you look at where poverty is most prevalent in our county, there's a direct correlation with communities of color. So we want to take our mobile unit and we want to take our services on the road into the communities that are under-resourced and that need our services the most, so that we can promote awareness and increase seamless access to workforce, employment and training services. And on the back end, we're doing some things as it pertains to community asset mapping. Montgomery County is rich in programs and organizations that do a lot of great work with residents and businesses. And we want to inventory all of those businesses and turn it into interactive websites and mobile applications where providers are able to connect, where consumers or job seekers are able to increase awareness of what's going on in their community as far as the support that's available. And just overall receive the services that they need to get them to whatever their next step may be. So we're focusing on engagement. We're focusing on creating a system, a true workforce ecosystem that corrals and stands by our job seekers as they seek services. And then we're creating smart partnerships, working with organizations like the Latin American Youth Center, who works well with minority populations, and other organizations that serve target populations like ex-offenders and disconnected youth, and so on. So, that's our concern, and that's our focus, is to help those 25,000 or as many of those 25,000 unemployed residents get back to work and trying to re-engage as much of the 28,000 individuals that have dropped out of the labor force since the outset of the pandemic. So that's our focus. And, thanks again for allowing me to participate in this panel.
Well, thank you. Looking back on something President Wolf had indicated, that, all the things that have affected our children coming into this year's school, and they're being a little behind. What can you say emotionally can the school system do to support those students, and how are they identified as being risked at that point?
MCPS identified the social emotional well-being of our students and our staff as a priority during this pandemic. Mm-hmm. And I'm most proud of a few things that we've implemented that are providing a support to the students. We put in student well-being teams at each school, which monitor student well-being and respond to referrals for both student and family support. We had staff participate in summer training to get ready for the return of students to school. So this training identified strategies to implement based on anticipated challenges after the students hadn't been in a building for so long. We adopted a Leader in Me social emotional learning curriculum in selected schools, and we hope to implement that in 100% of the schools by 2024. We partner with our county agencies and stakeholders such as the Department of Health and Human Services to provide additional supports because, our primary focus is the education of students. And we deal with social emotional issues to the extent that it interferes with their ability to learn. So a lot of times we refer out to county agencies for deeper support. We have increased the number of mental health professionals in our school system. And of course, we've always had a multi-tiered system of support.
Great. Speaking of that, Frank, looking at the problems since March of 2020 with the housing and dealing with the economic deficit, how can people know of the services that they can take advantage of that your department provide?
The county's been communicating through all of our outreach. We have dozens of community organizations that we partner with to get that information out. Websites for both Department of Health and Human Services and DHCA have very specific resource websites to connect people with this information. So the challenge has been to reach those residents who are not as easily connected and communicated with, and we're trying to use every vehicle possible. But the effort is going to be to connect people to the post-federal dollars when we're operating again in the recovery mode. It's going to be very, very challenging, and we very much appreciate anyone listening to this that has connections to help the county connect residents and communities to the resources. The information is on the websites, but the challenge is connecting those residents in need, and unfortunately, that's our biggest challenge.
Speaking of that, Executive Director Featherstone, Anthony, how can people know about your services? Where can they go? Who can they call?
So we're doing a lot of the same. We're marketing services through social media outlets, our website, our partners in our American Job Center network, like the Department of Rehabilitation Services, Health and Human Services, the Department of Labor. And, what I think has been, most effective is that we've reopened our physical doors. So in addition to that, we are open to the public Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 again for individuals who want to receive services in person. And one other thing that we're doing, because reaching the 18 and 24-year-old population that's not in school is a huge priority of ours, is we're hiring youth ambassadors, young folks who know young folks who to serve those individuals and help engage them. So that's what we're doing to increase awareness of our services.
Okay, we're about out of time. I want to thank all of you for your participation. I really appreciate that. Y'all have been very informative, and I hope people will get a lot out of this and be able to take advantage of the services that you provide. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of the program.
And now it's time to hear from our elected officials closest to our everyday lives here in Montgomery County. First, we'll hear from our county executive, Mark Elrich, and in a moment, you'll hear from our new county council president, Gabe Albernas.
Hello, I'm County Executive Mark Elrich. Thank you for having me join you virtually It's amazing what we have witnessed and experienced over the past 22 months. As I think we all know, this pandemic has highlighted and exacerbated the years of systemic racism and unequal treatment of minority communities. It has also pushed us to take some bold steps. The General Assembly passed historic public safety and justice reform, COVID relief for impacted communities, and unemployment reform, and even more. I am proud to be represented by people who reflect the values of our community. And I thank all of you who are involved in this work for your commitment. It's an honor to be your county executive. In Montgomery County, we are applying an equity lens to our work. During the pandemic, it helped us direct our efforts to ensure that our hard-to-reach communities receive support, care, and vaccinations. You may be familiar with Abuelina and her family, our award-winning characters who helped us connect to many in the Latino community. In partnership with the African American Health Partnership, we've developed and are trying to expand a network of Black medical professionals who the community could trust. And our Asian American Health Care Network of healthcare providers has done tremendous work in communications and outreach. Unlike anywhere else in this country, we have an outstanding vaccination rate, and that is true across all of our communities. We provided food, cash, and rental assistance, much of which is continuing even now, to our residents, our businesses, and our nonprofits. And we established service hubs that are providing a model for reaching deeper into our communities. And we built this into our budget. We established a preference for local business in procurement. We've created affordable housing projects which include ownership, and we're addressing climate change through an equity lens, including the first solar co-op for low and middle income households. We're working with our schools to help our children and our staff and to increase mental health supports. And we've begun a policy of housing our homeless year-round, not just for 4 winter months. We are working systemically to address inequities in policing and to build trust in the community. We've recreated WorkSource Montgomery to reflect our values and the needs in our diverse communities. And we've made a commitment to ensure that our schools are fully funded. Yet we know we have much work to do. I've reviewed your legislative priorities, and I look forward to helping those efforts. We must continue to be progressive, be innovative, and most importantly, be caring toward those who need to be uplifted. We are here not to maintain the status quo. As Bayard Rustin said, we need in every community a group of angelic troublemakers. I look forward to working with you, our angelic troublemakers, as we work together to make a better county. Thank you.
Hello, friends. This is Council President Gabe Albornoz, and it is such an honor and privilege to be here speaking on behalf of all of my colleagues at the 21st Annual Minority Legislative Breakfast. This is one of my favorite events of the year because for me, it always marks the beginning of the holiday season and a time for us to come together as a community to talk about the challenges that we've had to overcome, but also look to the future. And the challenges that we've had to overcome these last 3 years have been nothing short of overwhelming. We have seen so much tragedy in our community, and at times we have all felt exhausted and overwhelmed by those challenges. But thanks to the partnership that we've been able to forge with our public, private, and nonprofit sectors, Montgomery County has been able to weather this storm much more effectively than most other communities across the country. We have the highest vaccination rates of any county in the United States of America. We also have been able to prevent more than 7,000 evictions and are actually at pre-pandemic levels. We have been able to help our small and especially minority-owned businesses by providing direct financial assistance, but also streamlining efforts through the permitting services process to be able to support those small businesses get what they need to be able to move forward. Our priority has been and will be over this next year to continue to shore up our social safety net services. We are not out of the woods. We know that many of our families continue to be in crisis. And so the county will continue to make investments in a variety of different ways through both direct assistance, through food security, through rental assistance, but also direct cash assistance to families that are in crisis. And we will continue to make the strongest possible efforts to support all of our businesses, but in particular, our minority-owned businesses here in Montgomery County, because we know that when they succeed, we all succeed. That's what we're going to be doing in the short term. In the midterm, we have to work with WorkSource Montgomery on shoring up our workforce development opportunities here in Montgomery County. We've heard from businesses across all sectors, small, medium, and large, that they are struggling to identify employees to help meet their needs. It's incumbent upon us as a community to be able to provide the resources necessary to train the workforce that our employers need right now. In the long term, we have to think of strategies such as the expansion of Montgomery College into the eastern part of the county, and expansion of the universities of Shady Grove, and continuing to ensure that we have adequate housing to meet the needs of the variety of different employees that want to live and work here in Montgomery County. We have to do all of this in collaboration with our federal government, our state, and our municipalities. I am confident that we will be able to achieve all of that and more, and I am confident because of all of you. The organizers of this event are some of the strongest leaders that we have in the country. I am proud to work alongside of you, and I am proud that in this capacity over the next year, I will have the opportunity as council president to make sure that we don't just weather this storm, but we come out of it much stronger. Thank you again to all the organizers of this event, and we look for a much brighter year to come. Happy holidays and Happy New Year.
So I'm going to present a proclamation along with Council President Gabe Albornoz from Montgomery County, Maryland, and it reads, whereas on December 13th, 2001, the African American Business Council, known today as the African American Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County, the Asian American Political Alliance, and the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Montgomery County, each representing the three major minorities in Montgomery County, joined to sponsor the Minority Legislative Breakfast. And
whereas this event represented the first time in a public forum, public officials were called together by such a coalition to address minority concerns and share specific proposals to help minority communities. And
whereas the coalition of African American, Asian American, and the Hispanic community represented 40% of the population and 45% of the county's student population, and believed then and believe now that the union of these three groups could bring about powerful and political change in the lives of minorities and all residents living in Montgomery County. And
whereas the founders of the event believed then and believe today this event to be an important step in the political development and wherewithal within the minority community, and continues to serve as a model of collaboration and advocacy for common goals and objectives. And
whereas this year marks the 21st anniversary of the Minority Legislative Breakfast convened by the African American Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County, the Asian American Political Alliance, and Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County, whose mission remains to ensure accountability of public officials and their attention to minority issues and priorities, and to foster a coalition of ideas and interests among and between minority communities. And now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Mark Elrich, as County Executive, and Gabe Albornoz, as County Council President of Montgomery County, Maryland, do hereby proclaim Thursday, December 16th, 2021, as Minority Legislative Breakfast Day in Montgomery County, and call upon our residents to join in recognition and congratulations on the 21st anniversary of this important event, and salute the organizers on their work to educate, advocate, and seek common objectives for the betterment of the entire community. Signed the 16th day of December in the year 2021, Mark Elrich as County Executive, and Gabe Albornoz as Council President.
A big thank you to Council President Albornoz and County Executive Elrich for your leadership and commitment to making Montgomery County the best it can be for all residents. It's time to wrap up today's special event. Joining us with closing remarks is Carmen Larson, President of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County. Carmen?
Hi, Hi, what a great event. Again, I'm so pleased to have everybody here this morning. My name is Carmen Larson. I'm the president of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County. We are a co-host of this event. Minorities in this community are extremely relevant to the overall health of the county. So we really appreciate you being a partner with us in making sure that this is a better place for all of us. As the Minority Legislative Breakfast 2021 draws to a close, we want to thank you, all of you, for your participation, but special gratitude to our sponsors, on whom we depend to deliver the work that leads up to this event, and also the event itself. So we look forward to your joining us again next year, and we really hope it's going to be in person for 2022, because we want to follow up on the progress we made and review changing priorities and be able to discuss these with you in person. We share with you our commitment to love, protect, and respect our community, the environment, and this, our planet Earth. And that's our commitment for this coming year. And our hope and dreams are tied in with this. So thank you for joining us and being committed to a diverse, thriving community in Montgomery County. And special thanks to our co-hosts, the lead organization, the African American Chamber of Commerce from Montgomery County, and the Asian American Political Alliance. And thank you for 21 years of wonderful collaboration. Thank you all.
Thank you, Carmen. We are grateful to you, Janice Freeman, and Dr. Lynn for your leadership of the three organizations that make this event possible. We thank all of our guests and political leaders for joining us today, and our sponsors for the support that helps to make this special event happen. Most of all, we thank you, our viewers, participants, and supporters for joining together and raising your voices to create a Montgomery County that is healthy, safe, prosperous, and equitable for all. Please join, support, and contribute to our host organizations in every way that you can until we see you again next year. On behalf of the African American Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County, the Asian American Political Alliance, and the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Montgomery County, I'm Anthony Featherstone, wishing everyone a joyous and safe holiday season and a happy new year.